All right, good. I want to welcome everybody to our first ever Zoom meeting. And I want to tell you just a little bit about the Amel Owners Group. Today we have 1,403 members, including members that are interested in Amel. So we have Amel owners, Amel yacht owners, and we have people interested in Amel. And it's important, I think, for all of us to remember that in this meeting as well as when we're online. Our owners group has the best archive of Amel information in the world, with over 50,000 archived messages where Amel owners are exchanging information. We have over 700 megabytes of files that include owners' manuals and how-to procedures. And we have over 4,000 photos, most of which are specific to systems. In other words, they're not glamour photographs. Oh, look at my beautiful Amel. They are, oh, look at my fuel pump here, tell me what's wrong. Those kinds of photos. It is a good resource. It's a good resource for all of us. The structure of this meeting is going to be very loose. You're not going to hear much from me after I get through in just a few minutes. And it's going to be an exchange of information, but likely we're not going to reach any conclusions. We're just going to exchange information. The administrator most of you have met or seen is Thilo Peters. He's an Amel yacht owner member, and he's been a member since January of 2019. And he falls into that group of people that have absolutely decided that they're going to buy an Amel, but he does not yet have his Amel. Okay. Our purpose again is social. It's an exchange of knowledge, and it's a shakedown or a sea trial for Zoom to see if we're going to use it in the future. The topics we're going to cover today are two. We've limited it to two topics. The first topic is going to be sourcing parts, and the second topic is going to be standing rigging. Again, I'm going to repeat, we're probably not going to reach any conclusions, but we'll be able to exchange information and say, hey, how are you, all the way across the world. I want to apologize for those of you that have a tough time or an inconvenient time to join the meeting, but the times were picked so that we could include everybody around the world, which is really kind of an amazing part of it. Hi, Atia. Okay, with that, I'm going to turn it back to Thilo, who is going to manage and administer the rest of the meeting.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Bill, and welcome to all of you. And so we have this meeting streaming. We have 33 members via Zoom and 23 on LinkedIn. The best way to do this in order to prevent overspeak on this is if we can sort of collaborate. We're going to be opening up the floor for comments on the topic, but the best way to do this is to have we have functions in Zoom that allow you to raise your hand. Now, if you look on the bottom of your screen right down here, you should see that there's a thing for participants. It says, and it has a number on it showing that there are 33 participants there. If you click on that, there is a sidebar that then shows the participants. At the bottom of that sidebar gives you choice to, you can have little, you say yes, no, but you also have the ability to raise your hand. And this is the best way to communicate. Now, there's also right here at the bottom of the screen, a chat function. And if you click on that, also on the right hand of your screen, you will see a column, a sidebar that has a chat function to it. And so that will allow you to raise a question or have a point. And so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to be sort of watching the chat bar and the symbol. So I've seen that Mark has given me a thumbs up. Thank you very much, Mark. And so I can see this and keep track of these things. And this way, we're going to allow the meeting to progress in that way. And this is a sharing experience. It's intended to answer questions, bring up topics, and reveal facts as you see them. So, that's a great thing. So I think with that, if everybody is comfortable with this, and I'm also keeping an eye on the YouTube Live. So if, for those of you watching via YouTube Live, you can also comment on that, and you can put it in the sidebar there. There's a bit of a delay with the YouTube link, still about 8 or 10 seconds, and so just be aware of that. We'll try and keep things up going as much as possible. So this is what we can do here. Now, Nicholas suggests that we might introduce ourselves with a few sentences. The risk there is that we end up going, into about, this would take us probably about 10 minutes of intro. So the question is, and you can use your yes and no functions in the sidebar. Do we want to do that? Or do we feel that that's a helpful thing, or do we want to go straight into the topic? I'm getting a strong feedback of no's here. So I think that for an immediate feedback, I'm getting the sense that we really want to go into the facts. I think this is a great environment that we can get to know each other, but maybe it's better to do that in the topic of the meetings. So the meeting topic, I think what we're going to do now is we were going to talk about the two topics. And so we'll open up the first topic and talk about, I've lost my notes here. Yeah, the sourcing parts. Sourcing parts is the first topic. And so I think that it would be great if we can get some inputs on what parts do you find easy to source? What are the particular parts that you have difficulty sourcing?
You waiting for somebody to say something?
I'm waiting for somebody to say something because I'm getting no hands up here. Oh, wait a minute. Okay, pardon me. Dave, let's start with Dave.
No.
So
I had to look to see how to unmute myself. Here's one thing that concerns me. I run into this.
Dave, I'm having a hard time hearing you.
All right, I need to figure out that I've got two screens here, and I think is my microphone up right now?
So, Dave, you sound very distant, so I'm having trouble hearing you.
Better?
Little bit. Mm-hmm.
All right, I've got it cranked up. I'll work on my microphone, but let's just, simple question. Relatively new owner, and my concern more than anything, I've got hole number 380, and it's just old enough that parts are starting to disappear from manufacturing. And what parts on these boats are really, if they show up, you automatically want to have a backup because they might just vanish. That's probably my biggest question right now as I'm out buying parts for the boat.
Well, somebody like Ian or somebody with a older hull number ought to answer that.
So I'm not sure I got the whole question, frankly. I think it was, what parts did you absolutely must have? Is that correct?
I think he was asking what parts he should be prepared for that are going to be difficult for him. I
Yeah.
had a hard time hearing him.
That's exactly the point.
Okay, he confirms that. Yep.
What parts do you see that they're unobtainium is what we call them here in the States. You can't get them anymore.
So I'll do my best. I have SM153, so it's a 1996 model. I'll just kind of go through the stuff. I know it's a pretty long list, and I know Bill has a list that he has used with his clients before. But I would say, obviously, from an engine perspective, you want to have all your standard hoses, belts, fuel pumps. Obviously, you want all your filters, copious amounts of filter changes, all that sort of thing. But there are various things that your engine manufacturer would suggest that you want to have spares. That's number one. The same thing would go with your generator. I think also when you look at your furler motors, that's something, again, depending upon the age of your vessel and the nature of its use, you want to look at your furling motors and your gearboxes, because those things can be they usually can be sourced out of Amel, but sometimes they're not in stock. So, and there's also two different brands that have been used depending upon the age of your Amel. So there's Bonfilioli and there's also Leroy Summer. And I'm just speaking of Super Marimus here. I really don't know about the other models, but I had a tough time finding my Bonfilioli parts because they were out of stock in La Rochelle, and I managed to find them in North America at a place called Drive Tech Automation out of Florida. So there is a North American supplier basically for both the motor and the gearbox. But, and I would say that you probably want to have one of each for your outhaul and for your mainsail furling. And needless to say, on your bow thruster, you want spur propellers, you want spare seal kits, you want to have 2 or 3 of your C drive maintenance kits, and there's several parts that go along with that. You know, if you're talking about winches, obviously winch maintenance and so on and so forth. So a lot of it is maintenance oriented, of course, but in terms of hardware, spare hardware, I look at things like the furlers as being quite critical, and obviously C drive and bow thruster type stuff, along with engines and generator parts. That's the thing that hits the top of my mind anyway, without looking at my list.
Okay. Wolfgang, you also had your hand up.
Yes.
You just muted yourself. Here you go.
Okay. So one important thing for me is that I have all these mails from Amel Owners Group in a storage that I can use them offline on the boat, because that's what will happen if you are offline, you have no internet access, and then you're working and looking for some parts which you need. And then it's very helpful if you have it on your laptop on board, on the boat, and then it's very easy to check it. The last time there was the discussion of the sonar speed, and we got mail that there is a company in US which sell this, and I thought, oh, it's good, buy it. And then I have it. And all the older boats, I think they will have a lot of things on board, and so I always continue to read the mails, and I recommend that you store this emails in a special program on your computer on the boat.
Good idea.
Mm-hmm.
It's a really
Good
good
idea.
Yeah.
Okay, Paolo, you had your hand up. Paulo, did you have something to add? Okay, Ian, you had something?
Yeah, and now as we're talking through this, you also want to have for your desalator, you want to have, depending again on the age of your desalator and its nature of its use, and how often you're going through your membranes. I know there's some discussion about that on the forum, so sometimes you want to have membranes. You want to have. I actually carry a spare AC pump, which I think is helpful, and a macerator pump, and then also a general pump for my electric toilets. So those are other spare parts you want to have. But I like the idea that Wolfgang is talking about in terms of having something digitally that you can refer back to and keep track of, because there's just so many different things to have on hand.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Dimitris, you had something to add to this?
Yes. Regarding the Super Maramu, I would say that you can source a lot of things in the market. The things that you cannot find in the market is the furlers, the motors of the furlers, which need to be as a spare part there, because they are getting old on the Super Maramus, and they are also get rusted, and you need to replace them in a certain time. And what you for sure need on a Super Maramu, which is the weak point of the boat, is the propeller of the bow thruster, because you need around 2 propellers per year. That's for sure. So if you don't have the propeller, you are in trouble. So you have to have at least 2 propellers in stock. And every stock that I have on my boat, perhaps I need it for myself, or I need for another boat. Because sometimes when you go in a harbor, some other Amel owners need a spare part, and you can help them. And this is very good to know that the fellow Amel owners have a spare part that you also need. And this is very, very good and very, very helpful. So I had some, for example, some relays for the bow thruster on the Amel 54, for the bow thruster of the Amel 54, which is totally different than the Super Maramu. And I gave it to somebody else, and he sent it to me by post when he had it available. So I didn't need it, so he sent it to me. He needed it, and I gave it to him. I mean, this is very, very good to have spare parts to give to other people that need it. That's what I wanted to say.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so thank you very much. And Fred, you had an input on this?
Okay, I'm on mute. Okay, just I think I can give some support to also help because I'm French. You hear that with my poor English, and moreover, the home port of Sandstone, the boat behind, is La Rochelle. It's my second Amel, so I know the shipyard and the people from the shipyard and the pontoon very, very, very well. Not because they are my friends, but because I met them several times. And as I read mainly on the Facebook page and everywhere, some word about the SAV Amel, the people from the support service, customer service at Amel. I would like to clarify to everyone that these people are just great. They are absolutely great. One of them is Maud. She is a fluent English speaker. And the other is Maxime. They have boss. The bosses change regularly, but these two people are the customer service, and they are great people with an extensive knowledge of what they can do. So, okay, sometimes the parts are a little bit more expensive when you buy it from Amel, but you are never obliged to buy from them. But they know exactly what they have. They know exactly where to get the part. They know also how to ship it where you are anywhere in the world and in an excellent condition. So I think that for the parts, the first thing to do is send an email to sav@amel.fr. This is the first thing to do, because if not, you will make a choice to decide from a wrong part. Okay, first start with this. Currently, they don't have a lot of part in stock because, okay, the shipyard change of strategy, but the knowledge is still here. They know your boat, they know all the parts. And okay, if you have something to keep in mind, is drop them a line. Of course, beside you have a great source on the forum, you have also the things of the preferred vendors of Bill, who are also with reference products. But okay, if they don't answer immediately, this is because they are busy, but they are great people. So remain polite with them and send them an email. It's just the first door to knock. This is my first insight.
I agree with you, Fred, 100%. As you know, and most of you know, I always say Amel first, and you should buy parts from Amel. We should all support them. And sure, there might be a cheaper place to buy something, but even if it's 10, 20, or 30% more, we need to keep Amel in the parts business. It's a wonderful thing that somebody who has a 20 to 30-year-old boat can get in touch with Amel and get a replacement part. Sometimes they don't have it, but I've known them to actually make parts for owners. So yes, and for those people who don't speak French, like me, I don't speak any French. It's always best to send Maud a photograph of what you're asking for. A photograph is a perfect translator. And so that's the best thing to do. And the other thing I would remind you to do with them is they're there to provide parts for you, but they're not necessarily there to give you advice. And I know that some people tend to write them and say, I have this problem, what do you think? That's the wrong place to do. If you do that, your email is going to wind up at the bottom of the stack and maybe never get answered. So just wanted to add that a little bit.
Yeah, just one addition. You are perfectly right, Bill, at this. And I want also to confirm that they don't have any incentive to sell more on this part of the company.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
if you got an information, a detail, or a price from them, this is always fair from the company, of course, but they don't have any incentive to take 100 or 1,000 euro more. They have just a small instruction to give support, and this is mainly something personal from this team and many other people in the company. So
Yes.
you can trust them and be in confidence. But Bill is right; they are not technicians, and they cannot give you technical advice. For that, you have the forum and the Bill book. But also, of course, you can't say that, but I have to say the book is just.
That's great. Okay, Danny has had his hand up here for a while, so why don't we do that, and then we'll move on to the next topic. Okay, Danny, I've unmuted you now. Yep.
Okay, thank you for that. Yeah, good morning, all. Danny from Ocean Pearl in New Zealand. I was just thinking, as we're talking about parts, if you were to take something off my boat that I miss most of all, I've got a big box, multi-compartment box of screws and a big multi-compartment box of bolts. That is my most essential bit of equipment on the boat. It is an incredible range of screws and bolts, and I've never failed to open that box and find one that does the job that needs to be done. So sometimes you can't always have the exact part you need, but if you've got a box of screws and bolts with the range I've got, it's amazing what you can fix. And also a few bits and pieces in the bottom of your tool compartment that you can manufacture things out of, because you can't always have the right part there. And it's quite nice to be able to put things together. So that's just my little bit of input. But I echo what Bill has said about Amel. Maud is phenomenal. I don't speak French either, but I manage a bonjour and a merci beaucoup. And I think that helps. That's my little bit.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. One good point that from my experience that Doug brought up is DC motor brushes. They're relatively inexpensive, and if you carry extra stocks of your motor brushes, those are quite often can be real lifesavers. So that was a good point. In the interest of time, I think what we want to do is try and see if we can keep it on schedule here and change over to the next topic. That topic being standing rigging. And so does anybody have some points related to that? So, okay, so Dimitris, did you have a point you'd like to add?
I would like to add that if you are based in La Rochelle, you are very, very lucky. But I'm based in Athens, and all of us, most of us are based somewhere else. So the first source is, of course, Amel, but you have to find the local representatives of the parts. And then you need Amel less, because they don't have spare parts always on stock. You have to ask them for specific Amel parts, not ask them for a wind spare part, for example, because you can find it on the market. So that's my opinion.
Okay, great. So Ofer, did you have an input?
Yes, about the standing rigging. Hi, everybody
Yes.
who I know. Our boats were delivered with white sleeves on the rigging. I would like to know, what do you think about it? If it's good, when I got my boat 5 years ago, there was some grease under it, and then it by the sun it teared off. Do you think that it's needed? What is your opinion about it?
I'd like to say something. Is it okay?
Yep.
Is it okay that I say something? I have to assume that Henri Amel used the white sleeves on the rigging because of appearance, because it doesn't have a function. There's no function. And in fact, one of the things that the white sleeves does is, unless you remove them and rinse the rigging, it allows salt to accumulate on the stainless steel wire. And that's not something that you want. So my recommendation is to remove the plastic sleeves, or to at least once a month remove them, rinse the rigging, and put it back on. There is a possibility that you could replace the plastic sleeves with a larger sleeve. If you use a larger sleeve that fits loosely on the rigging, then you won't have the problem of salt accumulating. That's all I got.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Elja.
Yes, I'm sorry, but I have no idea for standing rig. It was for the last part.
Ah, okay.
But do your way. It's no problem.
Okay. Then Ian, you had a point that you wanted to make?
I'm just wondering how many people use tension gauges when they're tuning their rig.
Oh, that's what
Because there are several different kinds. Obviously, there's different tension levels. So I'm just wondering if many people do use tension gauge. And if they do, what kind do they use? So I'm guessing that nobody uses a tension gauge.
I think that's a nobody. Olivier Botte doesn't use tension gauges, and most of the people that I know that I recommend for rigging don't use tension gauges. They follow a pretty strict procedure, which I happen to have. And if anybody is interested, let me know and I'll send you a copy of the procedure. It's a combination of what I received from Olivier and several other people. And I basically took all of the information and put it into a single 2 or 3 page document. The other thing I want to quickly add, in case you don't know, you can buy a replacement rigging kit from ACMO in France, the original equipment manufacturer to Amel. It's actually quite reasonable. It's high quality and it fits exactly. So that, along with the procedure, is the best way to go. And of course, some owners have installed it themselves. Some owners have hired a rigger for 30 or 40 hours to help them install the ACMO kit. So anyway, that's there. I'm going to shut up. That's all I needed to say.
So
Okay.
can I just add
Yeah.
one thing there to Lou? So I'm also looking for, this goes back to our last discussion, and it's about spare parts, because I think you should have stay locks or some sort of swageless fittings that you carry aboard if you're doing particularly a lot of blue water. So I've been looking in North America here for metric stay locks or Norseman's or any other kind of equivalent, and they're all basically an Imperial over here. And I don't know if there's anybody in North America that would know of a metric supplier, because when you look, of course, at the ACMO stuff, it's all in metric. It's 10 millimeter, 12 millimeter, 7 millimeter, what have you. So doesn't necessarily have to solve something here, but if anybody could PM me or something like that, if they found a supplier, then that would be extremely helpful to me. That's it for me.
Let me add real quick. You're in Fort Lauderdale. Nansen Underwood is in Fort Lauderdale. Have you talked to them? Okay.
Not yet, no, but I do. I've dealt with them before.
They install the type of rigging that you're talking about. It is more expensive than a swage type fitting, but when they install it on an Amel, they use imperial dimensions, not metric dimensions. So I suspect that maybe it's difficult. So.
Yeah. Okay. Fair enough. Thank you.
Okay. So Dave, you had a comment?
Yeah. Swage versus the Stalax. And my boat was just re-rigged, but I'm going to be going through, if they ever open up the Erie Canal, I'm going to be going through the Erie Canal and taking my mast down and putting it back up again. What's everybody lean toward as far as the fittings on the ends of the shrouds and so on? Did you get that?
Are you talking about, David, you're talking about stay lock versus swage, right?
Versus swage,
yeah.
Exactly.
You want to know, look, I'm going to jump in here and say it's like an anchor discussion.
Oh, okay.
that there are, okay, I think they're both good, and each have to be done by reputable people, because if the swage hydraulic press is not perfect, you're going to have an imperfect swage, right? So the stay lock fittings are going to cost you to do a complete rigging of your boat probably 15 or 20% more than a swage fitting. But I think I think there are people that are one way or the other. I happen to believe that they're both probably equally good.
Okay, great. Thank you. Mohammed, you had a comment.
Yes. Hello, everyone. Yeah, regarding the standing rigging, we did go through that cracking covers on our boat probably within a year of when we got it in 2015. And so we looked around. We did actually get all of the replacement stuff from one of the French suppliers, and we did go back to Turkey just for that purpose. We had a rigger out there that swung up there. It took a whole day, made it really pretty. And actually one of the riggers commented, he thought that my wife is the one who really wanted that stuff, and called that boat the wedding boat. So after we got that done, just to wrap that up, as far as rigging is concerned, we did end up taking all of that off as a confirmation of what Bill mentioned last year because of those concerns, except the ones that actually do function as
Check the sail
on the boat, as for chafe and stuff on the boat. Regarding the standing rigging, we did have a crack on one of our swagging that we looked into. Talked to ACMO since it was original rigging. They looked at it, Olivier looked at it, and everyone came back with a conclusion that ACMO at the time did have some machines that did produce some cracks in their swagging. They looked at it, they said that's probably because of the machine. Just keep an eye on it, measure it. If it's not growing, we're not concerned about it. So we thought we're done with that issue until Olivier came up with another issue regarding the size of the shrouds. He mentioned that due to some event that I guess is really not publicized that well. I don't know if one of the rigs was lost or if they had some event. We don't know exactly what it was. But he strongly recommended, since we had the 8mm mid-runner, he strongly recommended that we upgrade that to a 10mm because that's what the new Amels at some point, somewhere around, I don't know, hull number 120, 130. I think Bill was trying to figure that out one time, but somewhere around that time is when they went up to a larger size mid shroud for the main. So I went at length with Olivier to try and figure out if this is really necessary because that rig is only 10 years old or 10 or 11 years old, and we weren't really looking at replacing it at the time. The kind of response I got was, well, if you just kind of putz around in the med and this and that, it'd be okay. But if you kind of go out into the Atlantic, I would seriously look at it. Went back and forth, and basically I got his, not in so many words, but got his recommendation to change it sooner rather than later. So having that from Olivier, we actually went ahead and we ordered, since we had the crack in the upper shroud, the main 12mm, we ordered and replaced all 6 shrouds last year. We ordered direct from ACMO. They sent everything, and that's one of the problems some of the boats have had that I've heard, is that they go into a yard, the rigger looks at all the existing rigging and basically comes up with the same sizes and gets the same size rig replaced as what's existing there. Whereas if you go to ACMO, they know all the modifications, they know everything that Amel has done through the years. So what you get is the latest Amel recommended rig that you're gonna put on. So we had concern about, going from an 8mm up to 10mm, whether all the pins and everything else was gonna work. And apparently Amel had worked all of that stuff out through with ACMO. They had upgraded the pins to a stronger material. So we ended up actually with an 8mm pin on a 10mm shroud, and no modifications need to be made. They sent the stuff out. We scheduled one of the riggers out of Malta to fly into Montenegro, and Nikki, that I'm sure you guys know about, came in and replaced the whole thing in a day and a half, and it was done perfectly. And we went out for a day sail, and we tuned the rig up, so everything went really smooth. So that's one issue that I don't know. I don't think Amel really wants to have advertised. And as to why they decided to do it, we just don't know. But it's something that probably good information to have, and it was a good way to replace it. And last thing you want is to have kind of doubt in your mind whether you're in a blow in the med or outside. The last thing you want to think about is whether I should have replaced that or not. So we decided to do that last year, and we're just going to replace the rest of the rig before we get out of the med into the Atlantic in about 2-3 years. So maybe that would be good information at the time. And then also Nikki recommended to remove all the coverings because of the issues that Bill mentioned. So I thought that'd be good information for everybody to have.
Can I say something? Let me see if I can show you. First of all, Super Maramoo owners, the rigging dimensions never changed. On 54 owners, 2 pieces of rigging changed. You can see on, I think you can see on the screen. I hope you can see on the screen.
Yes, we can. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, okay. That one piece of rigging was changed from 8 millimeters to 10 millimeters, and another piece from 10 to 12. But that was the 54, not the Super Maramoo. Oh, and by the way, one other thing. Mohammed just mentioned Nikki. Nikki is a rigger in Malta. He flies routinely all over Europe. I don't know if you heard what Mohammed said. Nikki, and I believe single-handedly, replaced the rigging with the boat in the water and the mast up in a day and a half. Is that correct, Mohammed?
Yes,
Yeah.
and if I can mention, it was going about 10 knots, 10 or 12 knots, and by the time we got done, it was a good 20 knots of wind, and it was kind of hairy at the end, but he swung up there, up and down, and he got it done. So, highly recommend. Good guy, knows his stuff. He's very quick, very reasonable. Charges you by the day, doesn't, you know, and while he was up there, we had quite a few other things up on the mast as far as lights and deck lights and other stuff that he needed to replace. He took care of all of that. Really, really great guy. Highly recommend it.
Yeah, and it was a one-man job. It wasn't he and a helper. Is that correct?
We were the help.
Yeah, well.
Yeah, well, I understand. I understand.
Yeah, come on.
I understand that one person there was a helper.
Yeah, at least we qualify as helpers, yes.
Yeah. So he's a good guy, and if anybody needs his contact information, you can either email me, email Muhammad. He also will change out bomber furlers on the 54 to the new generation.
Yeah, he did that for us as well. We did haul out in Malta in 2018, and he changed our furlers while we were hauled out. We worked together. We had a couple of issues we worked out, but you know, very, very quick guy, and he knows his stuff. He doesn't know something, he'll stand. You know, good thing he knows Italian, so he managed to actually get Bomber on the phone and talk to them. There was a few wires that just didn't make any sense. I didn't want to just guess at it, so he called up Bomber direct and talked to them Italian, got it figured out, and we got it done. Haven't had any issues since.
Yeah, good.
Can I ask a question about frequency of changing the standing rigging?
Go ahead.
Yeah, so I have a Super Maramoo 2001, and I've had the standing rigging surveyed 3 times in the last 2 years because it's getting old, and decided to get in touch with ACMO and do it. And so I contacted Maud at SAV and explained, you know, she got the ACMO contact info, and she said, look, there is not a regular time schedule to replace standing rigging. And if it surveys well, it does not need to be replaced. So I'm not doing any big crossings right now. However, I've had it inspected. It looks very good. It does not look shiny, like mirror smooth, but it's getting old. But Maud, who was in touch with Olivier, I was like, can you check this? Because the consensus on the forum is no more than 10 years. And if any of you know Joel Potter, he's very quick to tell you about swaging, internal failures, and metal fatigue, all of which are real issues. So what is the consensus on changing it out? Because Maud said, you know, it lies with the surveyors, and it doesn't die of old age. It dies of oxidation or anything like that.
Yeah. Can I jump in here and say something first? The 10 years comes from insurance companies. That's where the 10 years comes from. And it's a rule of thumb that they use if it's a sailboat, which means it could be a Catalina, it could be whatever brand sailboat, and it could have very light rigging, it could have poor stainless steel. Who knows? But that's where the 10 years comes from. They use it as a rule of thumb. I agree with Maud. It's really up to the inspection of the rigging as to when it needs to be replaced. In my opinion, you start inspecting the rigging when it's 10 years old and do it annually. And if you're happen to be in Malta, that's another thing that Nikki does, by the way. He's really good, but most riggers will do an inspection, and it shouldn't be too much more than about €200 to do a complete rigging inspection. When you get up to 20 years, if you want a rule of thumb, that's when I think you need to be thinking, and you've had it inspected every year up to 20 years. That's when I think you want to be seriously thinking about changing if you haven't already been told to change the rigging. At 11 or 12 years, you might have a rigging inspection and somebody might mention a single shroud. I would replace it and then do a rigging inspection the following year. So that's my opinion. That's what I've seen with about 160 clients that have Amel and have rigging. And that's, I think, maybe a rule of thumb, but there are all kinds of opinions on this. The 10-year is driven by the insurance company, okay?
Thank you.
Just, if I can just add in a comment from the YouTube side of things, Jean-Pierre Germain is, he's in, I think, you know, he's in New Zealand. He said his rig on, he's got Super Maramu 007, and his rig is 15 years old and doing just fine, and is not inclined to have to change it anytime soon.
Yeah.
Well, I was ready to, you know, Maud quoted for Super Maramu, I think it was about 12,000 euros for all. You know, if I'm going to do one, I'm going to do them all, and then cost her a few $1,000. So I was ready to do it, and it was only, you know, Maud's opinion is not an opinion I take lightly. So she said, don't do it if it doesn't need it. But that seems to be, you know, contrary to, I'd say, the sense of what I read on the forum. So
if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Yeah, something.
Well, what Joel Potter will say is it looked fine until they lost the rigging. So. Okay, thank you.
Tony, you had your hand up.
Hi, Tilo. Hi, Bill. Thanks for convening this evening. It's great to put a name to faces on this forum, so thank you for this. In fact, I'm in Malta at the moment with Balthazar and Amel 54, with the famous Nikki, who, back to your point about when to renew the standing rigging, he said, absolutely don't. Your boat is 12 years old. You're looking to circumnavigate, setting off in about 3 years' time, so that's the time to perhaps think about it. But one really practical point he did have for me is remembering when hosing down the standing rigging, you know, not just hosing fresh water around the swages and the turnbuckles. He said, go much higher up the rigging than you would ever imagine. Get 4 meters, 5 meters up, because there's salt in the air that crystallizes on the standing rigging. And then the dew brings that salt down to the turnbuckles and the swages. And that's where the problem begins. So a really simple maintenance point for me was to get fresh water as high up the rigging as I could possibly hose. And so that was my simple point from the infamous Nikki, who Bill's a big fan of, and Mohammed Nati too, I know. So that was all I wanted to add. And thanks again for this evening, or today.
Yeah, I think every Amel owner is a fan of Nikki that has used him, right?
That is true.
Absolutely.
Indeed. So then, Paolo, I think you had your hand up.
Am I muted?
Now, Paolo, I hear you, yes.
Okay, good. Thank you very much. But my question has been already answered, because I was just questioning about the timing for the replacement. Also, mine is looking, it looks like new after 12 years. And again, it's a question of, glad to hear that is a question of insurance. The question is, if you don't change it are you finding an insurance to cover you? Because at the end you may end up having to change it because otherwise you won't be able to stipulate a contract. This is the other aspect of the story. For the moment, I can keep the cover. I have no intention to change because this is pretty good looking at it. The only question is that I don't know if my insurance company want to oblige me to change it anyway. I don't know if anybody has any experience on that.
Yes, I happen to have experience on that. What I found is with 3 different insurance companies, maybe 4, through some of our clients, if you present the insurance company with a rigging inspection, you say, here is a rigging inspection. In every case that has been done, the insurance company said, fine. Okay, but you're going to have to do it each year, which is something that I think you should do anyway when it's 10 years old. It should cost you less than 200 euros to have a rigging inspection. And here you have something in writing to give to the insurance company. In my experience, every time this has been done, the insurance company, they actually like it. They like having a rigging inspection versus picking 10 years.
Okay, thank you very much.
Mm-hmm. So Dimitris, do you have a comment to add?
Yes, I would like to comment that it is very interesting to make a discussion about insurance companies.
Well, this is another story.
We can have a discussion, but I'm not sure we have any answers.
No, but just to have a discussion and to have a poll of which company everybody is using, because I used the company that Amel proposed to me, and I thought that it's a good company. But at the end, I found out that it's a company that Amel Nikimat was using, and they didn't pay him a cent, although he has a damage on his boat due to the hurricane in somewhere in the Caribbean. So I think that it is worth to make a discussion about insurance companies and the various problems they have in the various parts of the world.
I'll put that on the list for the next time.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's good. We've actually gone through the time allotted, but there is no time limitation on this. I'm not trying to shut the group down. I'm going to be here for a while, and would welcome having people just come up with any other Q&A that comes up. But I think what we've seen here is that there's a couple of topics for future discussion that would be better suited to addressing to a larger or to a more structured discussion. One is as we mentioned, the insurance idea, but also the other is the whole lithium conversion process. That sounds like a very hot topic.
What I want to you hear me?
Yes.
I would like to propose. I don't know if all the other owners agree, but to have to specify topics according to the boat types. Because, for example, there are Mango users that are interested in Mango questions. And there is Amel 54 users that are interested in Amel 54 problems, which are not affecting the Super Maramu owners. For example, the boat raster is totally different on the Amel 54 than on the Super Maramu. So this is my opinion that it's better to structure it also according to type of boat in the next or in another meeting. Boat specific questions.
Okay.
That's a good point. This particular meeting, the 2 topics apply to anybody who owns an Amel. But that's really good, and I made a note of that, and we'll see how that goes.
You know, one way you have to do is you might have a meeting like this, and then you have the ability to break it out into breakout rooms. Don't you, Tilo? And we could split up into for singular discussion on each boat. You could break it up into groups and still have I like this overall meeting. It's interesting to hear what's happening over in Europe with the virus problem that we've got right now, and just to hear from everybody around the globe. But yeah, boat-specific meetings might be a good idea.
Okay. Great. Yeah. And breakout rooms we can definitely do. I do that quite a lot, so that's no problem. Diane had a question or had her hand up.
Well, I was just going to mention something about the rigging. It's probably obvious to most, but rigging generally doesn't break mid-span. So if you wanted to, if you're going to be doing some inspections on the rigging yourself, you want to pay particular attention to where the swage with the the rigging goes into the swage. That's particularly where you're going to probably have a problem. So I routinely, not on a daily basis, but routinely check around all my swages, the wires there, look for a break, because that's generally where it tends to break. So we look there. Secondly, I would just say that if we're inclined to tackle the job themselves, re-rigging, I have done that myself. I re-rigged my boat about 5 years ago, and I did it myself. And it's a pretty straightforward job. I really don't think it took me 20 hours. I don't think I was hearing numbers here, but I don't recall it taking me that long to do. There's a particular order in which you either detach the shrouds from the mast, but it's also very important when you install it, you do it in the proper order. You don't start with your uppers and crank that down at all, because you can bend the mast. So you do it in a series, and I won't get into discussion of it because it's easily researched, whatever. But it's not a particularly hard job to do if one is so inclined. And I've done mine still standing, and I've had no issues. So that's my 2 cents. That's all I want to say.
I have a question for you. Didn't you leave Diane at the top of the mast when you were doing that and go eat lunch?
That was another boat and another time. Yeah, I did. That was another boat a long time ago. I was much younger and I could get away with that kind of stuff. But
and then you went up and had lunch.
I went and had lunch and left her up stop there. But yeah, I thought for fear of heights. Haven't gone up there since.
No. He's going up, and he'll be sorry one day.
Yeah, she'll leave me up there one day, I'm sure. or just slip the line slip, perhaps.
Okay, Danny had a question. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just going to say that Pat and Diane, they should have had the cat with them, or naughty cats. Enough the pictures of that. Yeah, I was just going to say about the whether we should have split it out into the various models. I like seeing a lot. It's fun to see what's going on with the 54s and the mangoes and the Santarins. It's interesting. So I wouldn't want to see it split up at all.
Good point.
Thanks, Danny. Hi, Yvonne. Hi.
How are you doing, guys? Hi, guys.
Hello. Hey, Dan. Hey, guys.
Hello. How are you?
Are you going to get the cat yet, Diane?
Okay.
Get naughty cat first.
Didn't know we were still on. Okay. Yeah. Well, it's good to see you guys. Yeah, it's nice. This is nice. I see everybody. Whatever. A lot of the folks I don't know, I recognize a few of the names, but it's a nice opportunity to connect names and faces, whatever. But anyway, so it's good. That's about all I have to say. Yeah. Does it automatically go to? How's this work? Does this automatically, when you start speaking, it goes to you, or
like it boxes you?
Like because we're still on our hands up, or what?
It goes back and forth to speakers, but then sometimes what I do is you can also put it on gallery view and see the whole spread of people. So
this is the first time I actually just signed up for Zoom to be able to do this. I'm not a techie guy at all, so I don't know anything about how this works at all. But it's very cool. It's very good.
You can see who logged on. It was me.
Yeah, Diana's available. She's a technical advisor here in this family. That's for sure. Anyway, it's been very nice. I'm over and out.
All right, I think we're probably ready to wrap it up, Tilo.
Yeah, okay. Well, I'll leave it to you to wrap up, Bill.
Oh, okay. Well, first of all, I want to thank everybody for joining us today. And I know that I learned some things. I hope everybody else did. I made some notes of the suggestions for the next meetings, and hopefully we can have more. And I want to really thank Tilo for managing this for us. He has a professional Zoom account, and he's got lots of experience in doing this. So I think it made it smoother than certainly if I had tried to do it without him. So thank everybody for participating, especially thank Tilo for controlling us. And that's all I have from Galveston Island.
I have a question.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, yeah, Diane, you had a question, you said?
Yeah, I just want to wave bye from the South Express River in Maryland.
Yeah, it's about time to make a rum and coke here.
All right.
I was wondering if any of you have changed your cruising plans because of this virus. I don't know where each of you are, but are you guys still gonna do it in the summer, or what have you decided? Or have you decided already?
It's hard to make plans. Hard to make plans at all now. I have a boat in the harbor up on the Hard for repairs, and that's the repairs I've been waiting to get done for 6 months, and they haven't even touched it. Well, they're not open. I don't even know when the repairs will be done. So it's really our plans for this next winter is really up in the air. I don't even know if the boat will be done. You know, the boat may not even get in the water this summer. This virus has really screwed everything up. You know. But,
yeah. All right. Well, good luck to everybody. Hope you stay safe and healthy.
Yeah. Everybody stay safe.
Thank you. Stay safe. Goodbye to everybody.
This is social distancing. This is ultimate social distancing. Thousands of miles apart.
Well, actually, it's social distancing, but it's very social, and in a way, this event has managed to bring the owners group closer together in one sort of way.
Definitely so. Yes.
Yeah. But I'm still gonna go wash my hands.
Good. And would you make me a rum and coke too?
I will, man. Stop in. You know where we live. Okay. Take care.
Good to see you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thanks a lot. Bye.
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 Mm-hmm.
Goodbye, Wolfgang. Good seeing you again.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Thanks for setting it up, Bill.
Yeah, Mohammed.
Bye. Yeah, excellent. Thank you. Bye, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye.